Welcome to We Are Old, Get Over It, the podcast where we celebrate the wisdom of age and maybe a little grumbling too. Okay, there's a reason why I'm wearing this beret, because I'm speaking to Kelsey Perri, and she's with Rhodes Scholar, and I'm doing an interview with her today about her organization. And now that you've seen me in this hat, I'm going to have to put my headset on so I can actually hear what she has to say. I'll try not to give up my ear on that one. Hi, Kelsey. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Ken?
Well, thank you for
Bonjour.
taking the time. Oh, bonjour to you. I don't feel like I'm in France. Do you? Are you in Boston
I'm
right
in
now?
Providence, Rhode Island is where I'm
Providence.
based.
Oh,
Yep,
okay.
that's where I am.
Well, I'm in Florida, but it still doesn't. It's not like Paris, but my daughter tells me that it's been snowing over there. So I
Yeah.
think we should just avoid it at this time of the year. Anyway, we're going to be speaking today about an organization called Rhodes Scholar. Now, it's not Rhodes Scholar, which is from England. It's Rhodes Scholar, which is a unique organization. It's a nonprofit that plans trips for all ages of people. Primarily, though, it was started as a touring service for seniors. Could you give me a little bit of information about that?
Yeah, definitely. So we were founded in 1975 as Elder Hostel. We actually celebrated our 50th anniversary last year. And when we were founded 50 years ago, we were taking older adults to college campuses, and they were staying in the dorms, and they were taking classes in the lecture halls, and they were eating in the dining hall. So it was really kind of more of like a back to campus type experience for older adults. Retirement was starting to become more common for people, and they had this time they were trying to fill, and lifelong learning seemed like a really great option. So we were giving people opportunities for education in retirement. And over the past 50 years, we have evolved to be more of an educational travel organization. So we are not staying in dorms anymore. We're staying in hotels. And our programs now take place all around the world in over 100 countries and almost all 50 states. But the things that haven't changed is that we are still a not-for-profit. We still serve older adults primarily, and we still have our educational mission. That's what all of our programs are focused on. So when you come on a program with us, you're not there to sit on the beach and read a book or to hit the spa all day. You are there to learn and to be active and to engage with other older adults in communion and learning.
Right, great. Okay, well, let's go right into our interview. You have different kinds of programs. You have programs from like grandparent adventures to signature cities. What are the most popular programs right now?
What's really popular for us right now is our solos only programs and our women's only programs. Those are relatively new for us. We've been doing women's only on a small scale. Like we've had a couple of programs for a while, but we really launched a lot more of those destinations and different programs that are women's only over the last couple of years, and they've been really popular. And then very similar with the solos only, but those are brand new for us this past year, and they've been really popular, and we've had really great reviews. So those are both really popular. And there's a lot of overlap with those. So most of the solo travelers on the solos only trips are women, and most of the participants on the women's only trips are also solos. So it just kind of depends the way that you look at which aspect of it is most important to you. So those are really popular. We also, our national parks programs are always really popular. You mentioned our grandparent programs. Those have continued to be popular. We see a lot in the travel media refers to them as skip gen. So that's grandparents and grandkids traveling together. We refer to
Hmm.
them as grandparent programs. And then we also have family programs for all three generations. But yeah, I think the grandparent programs have become more popular over the past decade or so. But we've actually been doing them since the 1970s and really launched them widely in 1985. So we've been doing them for a long time, but they've become more popular among other travel organizations in more recent years. What else can I say is popular? We have some new things as well. Pickleball programs. We only have 3 of them, but they pretty much sell out. It's something that's really new, and
Yeah.
obviously pickleball has been taken the world by storm, has taken the country by storm, especially. But traveling to play pickleball is a little bit of a different idea and a different concept too. I think one thing is that it's hard to get pickleball court time from what I've heard, even in your local area. So being able to travel and learn how to play pickleball from pickleball experts and playing with some different competition is kind of fun too. So that's something that's kind of newer and popular for us too.
Well, that's interesting because I did 2 episodes, a season ago, maybe 2 seasons ago, about pickleball, and one of them was, about with an instructor on pickleball and how popular it is,
Mhm.
and the other one was with a doctor who treats people that
For
have get
injuries?
injured from pickleball, but I think that's a
Mhm.
great thing for you
Our
guys to
our
offer.
plumber our plumber just had a pickleball injury. He's so he I know that that's definitely a problem. That's become a problem.
Okay, let's go back for a second because you talked about the solo trips. One of the things I researched that I thought was very interesting. Tell me what percentage of their travelers are men versus women, and why one is more popular.
We'll get to the why. I'll make some guesses, but 60% of our travelers are women. I'm gonna give you some stats here. 60% of our overall travelers are women. So 30% of our travelers are solo travelers. And 85% of our solo travelers are women. So most of our solo travelers are women. And we actually did an interesting study in 2023. We found that 60% of our solo travelers, who are mostly women, are actually married but traveling without their spouses. So it's not that we just have all of these, a huge number of single people necessarily, or divorced people or widowed people, which we do have for sure. But there's also just this trend of older adults, especially women, traveling without their spouses. And when we asked them why their husbands don't want to travel with them, the number one answer was that their husbands are just simply not interested in travel. And so I just think I want to now do another study to get down to the bottom of why these men don't want to travel. I think we really lean into the fact that we are very
Huh.
appealing to women. And so it's kind of easy for us to rely on marketing to women and appealing to women. But now I just want to know if how can we reach those older men? Because we obviously at Road Scholar believe in the importance of lifelong learning, of travel, of socialization in older adulthood. And so we want to make sure that we are also reaching the older men who are also at a high risk for social isolation and loneliness in older adulthood. So that's my next kind of study, is to dig into a little bit more, is why are men less interested in travel? I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, Ken, as a
Well,
man.
well, first of all, part of the craziness of being a man is that they're so involved in watching other people in sports that they don't want to travel overseas
To
or
miss a
somewhere
game?
else and miss a game, which is I can't say it's stupid, but it's stupid. Okay? And the adventure of traveling is the fact that you're experiencing new things all the time. And whether you're with maybe you should organize tours that are just men and take them to places that they want to go to, like maybe where the World Series games are, or take them something like that. I mean, I really don't know, but I think it really surprised me that so few men get involved in your tours and the experiences that are there. So I think if you offered experiences, whatever they would be, whether they be rafting or whether they be the best golf courses to see or how they make a golf course or whatever it would be, I think it would be very interesting for you to do something like that. But it
Yeah.
was very surprising to me. Also, one of the things I was going to ask you about is, since you're dealing primarily with, not primarily, but a lot of seniors, talk about the activity levels that you have and how that works.
Yeah, well, and we are working mostly with seniors. We market to people over 50. You have to be at least 40 to even enroll in a program on our website. So we say people over 50 is what our programs are for, but the average age is 72. And that really is an average, because we have people in their 50s and we have people in their 90s that travel with us. So it really is a wide range, but that kind of early 70s is the sweet spot of our average. And so in order to appeal, people in their 50s, people in their 70s, that's three different generations of people right now.
Yes.
And they are such a diverse community of older adults that have different interests, have different mobility levels. And our goal and our mission is to reach as many older adults as possible. So in order to do that, we really have to be able to offer a really large breadth of programming. And that's from, the destinations that we offer. We have programs in over 100 countries in almost all 50 states. And as you said, our activity levels are really important for us to have a huge range. So we have more kind of sedentary, more classroom-based programs where you're seated for most of that time. And then that goes all the way up to, active outdoor hiking programs, kayaking, canoeing, things like that. And we have a very clear activity level scale on our website that you can read to figure out what the right activity level is for you. And then also, we're really transparent about every single itinerary that we have on our website. You can go to the day by day itinerary and see exactly what activity requirements are going to be asked of you for each day. So it will say how many miles you're walking, even how long you're maybe on a bus, or how long you may have to stand in a museum, because activity level is different for everyone. It's not just how far you're hiking or what the elevation is, but for some people, sitting on a bus might be really uncomfortable. So we try to be really as transparent as possible with what's going to be expected so you can pick the right trip for you, because that's really important for us.
That's great to know. Talk about the expert-led programs that you have, learning programs,
Mhm.
because because you're the fact that you're a Rhodes Scholar. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so all of our programs are led by a group leader, and that's the person who's there with the group the entire extent of the trip. And they manage all the logistics, make sure everybody shows up where they need to on time, make sure the bus is there, all that kind of stuff. They also provide educational programming throughout the trip. They'll do some different lectures, maybe at the hotel in the morning or in the evening. They may do some lectures on the bus while you're driving somewhere. And then throughout the program, you'll also meet instructors. So we have the group leader and then we have the instructors. And the instructors are people who you'll meet maybe for one lecture or two lectures along the way. And that might be, a museum docent, it may be a lobster boat captain. It just kind of depends what we have you learning on that program and whoever the true expert is. And they're always local. So no matter where you're traveling, you're going to get to really meet some locals and get to know from the local experts. So those are the kind of different types of instructors we have in our programs.
Okay. One question I have that I didn't notice anything about is, are meals included, and how does that work?
Yeah, so pretty much everything is included in the cost of the program. You may have one or two meals on your own that you have to pay for if there's like some free time, but for the most part, most of the meals are included. All of the hotel, all of the activities, your group leader, the instructors. You might have live musical performances, all the transportation, even the tips, gratuities, even for your group leaders, for your guides. You don't have to worry about tipping anybody, and really nobody else does that. And we also include our Road Scholar Assurance Plan, which is basically like the health side of travel insurance. So if you're traveling internationally and you should get sick or get injured or something like that, there's a health insurance plan to cover you, and there's also 24/7 emergency assistance through that program too. So those are all included. So once you enroll in a program with us, you pretty much you're all taken care of. The only other thing you have to purchase is flights, and then once you do that, you're all set.
Okay. Let's go on to another discussion. The social and emotional impact of your program, the community factor, and in particular, the intergenerational programs, which you briefly discussed. I don't know if you want to mention it again. And you did talk about the safety issue already. So basically, it's making new friends is a big part of it. I've been on many trips and I've made friends on those trips, and I thought they'd be long-term friends, but they didn't turn out to be long-term friends, but at least I had friends. Uh, but I think it's a very great experience because it gives you the opportunity to meet new people. So speak about that a little bit.
Definitely. Social isolation and loneliness is an epidemic in the country. It's literally the government declared it a health emergency. So it's something that's we're acutely aware of because older adults are at a higher risk of social isolation and loneliness as we age. And so, Road Scholar's always been kind of offering an antidote to that. The social aspect of our programs has always been really important. And it's not even necessarily something that we have to put a lot of thought into. What happens is that we organize these programs, we design these programs that have an educational focus. And what happens is those naturally just attract people who are interested in learning in the same way. And so when they get to the program, they all are kind of like-minded, open-minded people who are there to learn, and they have similar interests. And so that immediately creates just this unique bond that people become very close friends very quickly. Especially coming out of the pandemic, I've seen even with myself that the socialization is such a muscle. And during the pandemic, I really saw coming out of it how difficult it was for me to start socializing again. And so it really is a muscle that you have to use and you have to practice. Something that's so important as we age. It improves your mental health, your physical health to be social. And so we see how important that is. And it's something that you can really practice on our programs. And like you said, we hear all the time that participants go on programs, they become friends with somebody that they, becomes a lifelong friend, especially for those solo solo travelers because oftentimes, solo travelers aren't traveling solo because they want to be alone. They just don't have anyone to travel with, or they don't have
Mhm.
anybody that has the same schedule as them or something. They still want to be with people. And so we hear a lot from our solo travelers that they find other friends within the groups and continue to be travel companions even moving forward. So it's definitely a big part of our programs.
Right. Socialization is basically everything regarding your programs. Let's talk a little bit about the trends for this year. Okay. What are seniors looking for this year?
Well, over the years, I mean, I think our programs have always pointed to this, but it just continues to be more and more true is that older adults want experiential learning. I think, especially, again, coming out of the pandemic and having travel taken away from all of us, people just want their travel experiences to have a deeper meaning, to be more immersive, more experiential, to have immersive cultural experiences where you're learning from the local people through hands on activities like we take people into an Italian family's home and you learn how to make gnocchi together and you get to interact with them and learn from them and really get to see what it's like to live in these places. And so that's really what older adults, what our participants are really looking for is those deeper cultural interactions and learning. I mean, just obviously learning is a big part of what we've always done, but we're seeing that more and more is that older adults want to come on, they want to travel, they don't wanna just go on a bus tour and look at pretty old buildings. They want to know what happened in those buildings. What's the history behind those buildings? Who built them? What's the architecture? Who's the architect? Things like that. So it's really just more about learning about the place that you're in and getting a deeper understanding of it.
Great. I have a question for you, though. How often do you get to go on these trips in a year?
Great
But now
question.
remember, now wait, there was one thing that we started discussing having this interview almost a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. And then at that point in time, you were about to have another baby, which you now have two young children. But
Mhm.
in a normal year, when you're not having children, how often do you get to go on one of your trips?
Yeah, so I've been at Rhodes Scholar almost 10 years. This year's gonna be my 10th anniversary. So I've been on about 10 programs. So on average, it's about 1 a year. I've been on multiple per year, certain years, and certainly COVID kind of got in the way there as well. But I have been able to go on a couple with my husband. We went to Cuba together, which was incredible. Highly recommend. Rhodes Scholar's been going to Cuba consistently since the 90s because we're an educational organization, and that was
Mhm.
one of the most definitely the most educational trips I've ever taken in my life. It was really, really amazing.
Interesting.
My husband and I also did our honeymoon with Rhodes Scholar, actually, to Galapagos and Machu Picchu. So that also was great. It was very rainy at Machu Picchu, so we're going to have to go back. But Galapagos was a huge highlight for us. Neither of us had ever snorkeled before, so being able to snorkel with sea turtles and sea lions and even
Mhm.
penguins we saw at one point was just so incredible. So that was a huge highlight. Two highlights. And then I got to go to Antarctica, which is insane. And honestly, before working at Rhodes Scholar, didn't even know that regular like civilians could go there. I thought it was just for scientists. So that was incredible. And then I've been on a few trips with my mom in recent years. Now that we have kids, it's easier for me to travel with someone that's not my husband, so he can stay home with the kids. So I got my mom hooked on Rhodes Scholar now too. And then we went to Quebec City together. And then the last trip, we got my aunt and two cousins to come as well, and we went to Savannah, Georgia. So yeah, I've kind of done a little mix. That's just a few
That's
of the
good.
highlights, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's been an incredible career for me to be able to combine my love of writing and travel and education. Not to toot my own horn, but I was valedictorian in high school, and so learning has always been something that's really important to me. So to be able to immerse myself in all of that every day is just such a blessing, and to be able to give that opportunity to other people, it's just so fulfilling as a career. So it's a great place to work.
There you go. Well, that's good. Let's talk about the slow travel pivot that well, in particular, your company has gone through. Explain that to people.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely seeing an increase in people being interested in more slower paced programs. So we are consistently developing as many as those as we can. We basically take our most popular itineraries and then we try to create a slower paced version of that. So we're doing that as much as we possibly can. That's the easiest way to get as many slower paced programs as possible. And then we're starting to just kind of try to look at it from different angles too and see if there's different ways that we can look at providing opportunities for people with mobility challenges, but also a lot of people that just want to take it a little bit slower and, smell the flowers. And, one example of that as well is we have choose your pace programs that are some of our active outdoor programs. And for those, on every single day of the trip, you can choose which of 2 to 3 different routes or itineraries that you want to do. So we'll break the group into smaller groups. And so if you want to take it a little bit slower one day, or if you're a little bit nervous about your physical abilities, or if, you're in a couple where one person is a little bit more active than the other person, you can split up during the day, but then join together in the evening. So that's another great example of how we try to accommodate people that are looking for that.
Okay, another question that we passed on before. You have a website, so people can get onto your website, which will be on our website. They'll have the information, the link. But why don't you mention your website, and are there printed materials that people can get rather than just going online? Could you give me a little information about that for the audience?
So you can find all of our programs. We have very detailed itineraries of every single program on our website. That's at www.roadscholar.org. And don't forget, it's ROAD scholar.org. So if you go there and at the very top left of the website, it's going to say find a trip. And if you click on that find a trip, that's a great way to filter our programs. You can filter them by destination, by activity level, by what you want to learn about. We have so many programs, so it can be a little overwhelming. So I definitely recommend starting there and kind of trying to narrow down to what you're looking for. But some people do like to just kind of browse more and have like a real catalog in their hands. And we still do send lots of catalogs. So you can also go on our website and request a catalog if you want to get something in the mail. And you can also control through your account on our website what marketing materials you want to get in the mail. So if you just want to get our one big book per year, you can request that. If you want just our national parks programs or our grandparent adventures, you can kind of tailor what kind of catalogs you want to get.
Okay, I'm glad I asked the question. Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about a couple of other things that you have. Tell me about the 100-day plus journey and what kind of world cruises you're planning for this year. How about that?
Sure. So we have our World Academy programs, which, as you said, are over 100 days long, and there's multiple of them. We have the same ships every year, but the itineraries vary a little bit. So we're going to be releasing our new itinerary very soon on our website, so you can keep an eye out for that. We call them Adventures Afloat. We call our cruises Adventures Afloat, but that is our longest program, and you get to be, just unpack one time, stay in the same room, but then the ship takes you from one place to the next, and you get to learn along the way. So those are really great. And then we have 6-week living and learning programs, which are interesting as well. That's another one of our longer programs. And so for those, we put you in a apartment in a European city, and you take language courses with the group during the week. And on the weekends, you go on sort of little weekend trips in, the wine region or in the countryside. But during the week, you're pretty much, besides those language classes, are kind of on your own to just immerse yourself in learning and living in another city. So those are really interesting programs too. Those are kind of 2 of our longest programs.
Okay. And you are a nonprofit, which is interesting, as we had mentioned early.
Mhm.
One of the things that you do, and one of the things that I talk about quite a bit, is caregiving and the stress that caregivers with their family members and their friends. You have a program for that. It's a grant or something that you do. Could you describe that to me? It's called, I don't know what it's called, a caregiver
Sure,
grant
I
or
can
something.
talk to the
Oh,
caregiver
okay,
grant,
good.
exactly.
Well, I remember
Yes.
reading it. So,
Yes, because of our nonprofit status, we part of that is that we do offer financial aid in the forms of scholarships and grants. So we have scholarships for people that may not be able to afford to travel otherwise. So you can apply for those on our website. And then we have the unique caregiver grant, which is a grant you can apply for if you're full time family caregiver, and basically provides respite to the caregiver to have a break from their caregiving responsibilities, to focus on themselves. You do then have to arrange backup care for the person you're giving care for while you're gone. So what we actually end up seeing pretty often is that the person will actually apply for and or take the program after their loved one has passed away. And
mm,
that's actually kind of a nice time to do it, because it's that transition is very difficult for a lot of people, from coming out of caregiving and focusing so much on the other person, and then to kind of start this new chapter in your life. You're grieving, but you also have this whole chapter ahead of you to focus on yourself. And so those programs really allow people to help them through that transition and start thinking about themselves and their next chapter. So they're really interesting. We also, I would mention, have our pair scholarship, which is for educators, retired educators, and anyone who's worked in education. And, it could be a janitor or someone who works in administration or a secretary or a school nurse. There's lots of different people that can qualify for that. So that's something unique to us.
I might have to write that down because my wife would qualify for
There you go.
that.
There you
You
go.
could end up with on a trip with me, you poor thing.
I love that.
How much does it cost to take
Right.
these trips?
Yeah, so we are not for profit. So our programs come at a higher value than what you would find with the commercial tour operator. So you can expect that our programs would be save you about 20% than what you would see from a commercial tour operator. But if you look at the ticket price, it might seem like a lot, but what's included in the program, as I kind of mentioned, like pretty much everything's all included. So the hotels, the meals, the group leader, the activities, the transportation. So when you really narrow in on what you're getting, the value is very high. So if you were to try to put that trip together by yourself, it would cost you significantly more. And then there's the other value that you can't even quantify, like the fact that you don't have to do any of the planning yourself and that you have the safety of being with the group and that you're with people who are experts in education that can take care of everything and provide the educational content that you wouldn't get otherwise. And then the other thing I'll mention is that we do have a wide breadth of price ranges as well. Our program started at $8.99 for a whole week and go all the way up to our private jet program, which is in the tens of thousands of dollars. So it's really everything we offer is at a range. So we have a range of activity levels, a range of destinations. Everything is a range because we want to be able to provide educational opportunities for everybody, no matter what you're looking for. And then the last thing I'll mention is something we also didn't talk about at all is our online programming. So we also have our online programming, which we developed coming out of the pandemic and has been more popular now even than at the peak of the pandemic. And so those programs are obviously much less expensive because you're not actually, going out on the road, but they provide lots of great educational content and kind of simulate the travel experience as much as possible online. So for those, we have 1 hour online lectures, which we offer multiple per week, and they're always different and they're always live, and you're learning from the same instructors that you would if you were out there traveling. And then we have multi-day online adventures online, which are small group, and you have your camera on and you're interacting in live discussions with the other participants
Hmm,
and live lectures and things like that. So those are other options. And our 1 hour lectures, we have at least one per month that are free. And we also have a new collection of those lectures called Age Well, which are focused on age topics related to aging, and those are always free. So that's also a great way to just kind of get to know Road Scholar if you've never traveled with us before. Go on our website, sign up for a free lecture, get a little taste of it, and then if it really feels, I think you'll know if you're a lifelong learner, you'll know if that really speaks to you, and you can dip your toe in the water with a less expensive trip in your area that you can drive to and kind of go from there. And then, as we mentioned, we also have our scholarships and financial aid. So there's lots of opportunities no matter what your budget is.
all right, great. Okay, let's talk about a little bit about the logistics of the practical side, of how people handle that. For example, if they're going on a trip and that particular day you're going on a hike or you're going on a walk and it's 2 miles and they don't have the ability to do that. How do you handle that?
Mm. Well, one thing I would say, as I spoke a little bit about this before, is that it's really important when you're enrolling in a program to take a really careful look at the activity notes to make
Yes,
sure
of
that it's the
course.
right program for you, because that's not something that we can decide for you. You really have to be honest with yourself and know what you're capable of. And so we not only do we try to be as transparent as possible about having those activity notes on our website, but we also remind people after they enrolled, make sure you take a look at those activity notes again, before your transfer fees kick in to make sure this is the right trip for you. So that's the most important thing.
Okay.
Once you get to the program, I mean, our group leaders are well versed and well trained in handling groups that have different mobility levels or situations where someone may not be fit enough or may have, even if you get like an injury on the program or something like that, that. So they know how to work around that and how to manage the group and things like that. But another thing, like I said, was those choose your pace programs. If you're someone who's not really sure about your capabilities and how much you want to challenge yourself, the choose your pace programs are a good place to start too for active outdoor at least.
So the point really is that there's so much literature that you have and so many options that you offer. It sounds like education is the hook, but community is the glue that holds it all together. I
Absolutely.
remember many years ago, I received your book, and it was like receiving the Sears Roebuck catalog. It was so thick,
Mhm.
and it
They're
was
still very
overwhelming.
they're still very big. Yep, they're on, like, newspaper print. It's supposed to
Yeah,
really kinda resemble a course catalog, that you might have
interesting.
had in college. So, yeah, they can be overwhelming, so you really have to know, again, are you the kind of person who likes to see everything and be able to browse and, turn pages and earmark pages and tear things out and put it on your fridge? Or if that's too overwhelming for you, go to our website and use the filters because that will help you narrow in on what you're really prioritizing in your travel.
Okay, I have 2 more questions.
Great. Shoot.
The first question is, what should people be looking for as a hidden gem destination that seniors are overlooking right now?
Okay, so I will say there's some place. Well, one thing I will say first is that over tourism is an issue. It's something that especially we're seeing in Europe. You've heard about there were people protesting in Barcelona because there's too many tourists coming to the city in the summer and things like that, and especially also with the summers being so hot in Europe and heat waves and things like that. One thing that's important to us is to design programs in places where they are off the beaten path, that are hidden gems, to try to bring people to places that they've never even heard of or give opportunities for people to go off the beaten path so that we can try to avoid or take a little heat off of the over tourism issue. And also part of that is we encourage people to travel outside of the peak season in the summer. Obviously most of our not most of but a lot of our participants are retired, and so they have that flexibility to travel either in the fall, the spring, or even in the winter. We have some really great high value programs that are really affordable that are in the winter in Mediterranean Europe, where the weather is still really mild and nice. But as far as specific destinations that are a little more off the beaten path and people may not have heard of, Malta is kind of one that we're focusing on a lot. We've had a program there for a while, but it's become a little more popular, so we added a couple more programs in Malta. We also have one in northern Greece. So Greece has always been a popular destination for us, and it's actually our campus of the year this year in 2026. So we're going to be doing a lot more programs there, and there's going to be a lot more people going to Greece with us. But the northern Greece program, I think it's called Off the Beaten Path Greece or something like that. So it's really taking you to historical sites and destinations in Greece that you may not have heard of. The Azores is kind of getting more and more popular. It's the Azores are islands that belong to Portugal. They're between the US and Europe, so it's a nice, easy flight to get to. And I've heard it described as the Hawaii of Europe. And my colleague, who
Oh,
is our on staff photographer, she's traveled very widely with us, and it's her favorite place that she's ever been to. It's just, she said it's, to her, she described it as a combination between Hawaii, New Zealand, and what was the other place? Oh, I forget what the other place was, but she said it was just so stunning and still quiet, like, it's a little undiscovered, so it feels like you kind of have the islands all to yourself. So those are 3 off the top of my head. Mongolia also is another destination
mm,
that is kind of newer for us and a little bit more off the beaten path in Asia. So those are some thoughts. Yeah, some things that come to mind.
okay. So the second question is, give me a story
Yeah.
about your experiences working with the company or going on a trip with some of the other people on the same trip you were on. Do you have any stories like that?
Oh
I
gosh,
don't want any
I'm
sad
sure I could
stories,
come up
okay?
no, I'm sure I could come up with, like, a million, but let me think. This is just one that comes to mind. I don't think it's a sad story. There was a woman when we went to Signature City, Quebec program, first trip I took my mom on. It was in Quebec City, and on those programs, you're in one city for the whole trip, 6 days, 5 nights. So you stay at one hotel, one city, and really get a deep dive into that city. There was a woman on the trip. I'm from Wisconsin originally, and that's where my mom lives. So she really hit it off with this one woman who was in her I think I want to say late 80s, and she was from Minnesota. So my mom really hit it off with her. And she told us how she got divorced the year before. And my mom was just so amazed by that. She's like, "You're in your 80s? Like, why would you even at that point? Why would you even get divorced?" And she's like, "My husband didn't want to travel. So I said, see you later." And that's what we're talking about with
Right.
these solo female travelers who are married too, and their husbands don't wanna travel.
Yeah.
They're not gonna let them hold them back. They're gonna go ahead and see the world anyway. But honestly, she said that she and her ex-husband they get along better now than they ever did. They live about a mile apart. They're best
Mhm.
friends. They still take care of each other. But she was like, "I just didn't wanna have to feel like I was spending his money or I was leaving him home and feel that guilt." She said, "I just needed that independence and that freedom." So that's just, a story that comes to mind as, a really independent older woman that I've met on one of my programs. And I'm just so impressed and astounded by our participants every day. Anytime I get to talk to one of them or interview one of them for an article or something, it's just the best part of my job because they're just so vibrant and adventurous. They're changing aging stereotypes every day, and that just really inspires me. It's completely reframed my whole perspective on aging working at Rhodes Scholar, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And I'm really grateful for the friendships, the intergenerational friendships that I've made because we just don't have a lot of opportunities in society now to become friends with someone 2 generations apart from us that's not a family member. To become friends with someone who's in their 80s for me is just a really unique opportunity that I've had at Rhodes Scholar and something that is really dear to me. I have a lot of participants that I've either met on programs or who have written blogs for us that I've stayed in touch with, and they'll keep in touch with me regularly. So that's really special and important to me, and something I'm really grateful for working at Rhodes Scholar.
That's great. Okay, so then there's just 2 more things I wanna say.
Sure.
First one is I wanna thank you for participating in the podcast today and giving out the information that you've given. And the second thing is that you and I have a project together, which is to get these men off their asses. And I don't usually curse in my podcast, by the way. I don't do politics, I don't curse. But to get them off their asses, and you and I have to come up with a way to get them out there because the women are having all the fun and are benefiting from all the experiences, and the men are sitting on their asses watching a football game, a baseball game, a basketball game. I won't say any more about that right now.
It affects your health and longevity to be just sitting on the couch watching TV instead of being out there learning and challenging yourself both physically and mentally and socially, and those are things that keep you healthy in older adulthood. So it's really important, and we have to yeah, you're right. I love that we're in this together. Let's work on it, Ken.
Okay, we're going to work on it. Okay, I'm just going to end right now with 2 quotes. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. And that's a quote from Henry Ford. The beautiful thing about learning is that no one can take it away from you. And that's from the musician B.B. King. And with that, I'd like to again thank Kelsey for being my guest. And everybody take care of yourself and be healthy. Great. And that concludes this episode of We Are Old, Get Over It. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found our conversation both insightful and entertaining. Remember, age is a journey, not a destination. So embrace the wrinkles, the forgetfulness, and the occasional tech frustrations with a good dose of get over it attitude. Until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and keep getting over it. Ken out.
This podcast features a variety of perspectives. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are solely their own and do not constitute an endorsement by this program. Unless otherwise stated, this podcast does not endorse the products and services of our guests, but shares them for informational purposes only.